One key theory of motivation is Frederick Taylor's scientific management. In 1909, Taylor published The Principles of Scientific Management. In this, he proposed that by optimizing and simplifying jobs, productivity would increase based on 4 points. The first, replace working by rule of thumb, or simple habit and common sense, and instead use the scientific method to study work and determine the most efficient way to perform specific tasks. Rather than simply assign workers to just any job, match workers to their jobs based on capability and motivation, and train them to work at maximum efficiency. Monitor worker performance and provide instructions and supervision to ensure that they're using the most efficient ways of working. And finally, allocate the work between managers and workers so that the managers spend their time planning and training, allowing the workers to perform their tasks efficiently. Hackman and Oldham's job characteristics theory proposes that high motivation is related to experiencing 3 psychological states while working. The first is meaningfulness of work. This means that labor has meaning to you, something that you can relate to and does not occur just as a set of movements to be repeated. This is fundamental to intrinsic motivation, meaning that work is motivating in a form of itself, as opposed to being only motivating as a means to an end. The second is responsibility. This means that you have been given the opportunity to be either a success or a failure at your job because sufficient freedom of action has been given to you. This would include the ability to make changes and incorporate the learning you gain while doing the job. There's also knowledge of outcomes. This is important for 2 reasons. Firstly, to provide the person knowledge on how successful their work has been, which in turn enables them to learn from mistakes. The second is to connect with them emotionally to the customer of their outputs, thus giving further purpose to the work. For example, somebody may work on a production line, but they also know that the food rations they produce help people in disaster areas, saving lives. Another important contribution to our understanding of individual motivation came from Frederick Herzberg studies, which addressed the question, what do people really want from their work experience? In the late 1950s, Herzberg surveyed numerous employees to find out what particular work elements made them feel exceptionally good or bad about their job. Hygiene factors, or job dissatisfiers, are extrinsic elements of the work environment that do not serve as a source of employee satisfaction or motivation. However, motivators, referred to as job satisfiers, are intrinsic job elements that lead to worker satisfaction. After researching hygiene factors and motivators, Herzberg set out to determine the effect of attitude on motivation by asking people to describe situations where they felt really good and really bad about their jobs. Ultimately, what was found is that people who felt good about their jobs gave very different responses from those who felt bad. B.F. Skinner was an American psychologist and an influential exponent of behavioralism. Skinner is widely regarded as the father of operant conditioning, but his work was based on Thorndike's 1898 law of effect. Skinner studied operant conditioning, which is a method of learning that employs rewards and punishments for behaviors. Through operant conditioning, an individual makes an association between a particular behavior and a consequence. Operant conditioning summarizes that the best way to understand behavior is to look at the causes of an action and its consequences. First, there's positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement strengthens a behavior by providing a consequence an individual finds rewarding. An example could be a financial bonus for completing a project. Skinner showed how positive reinforcement worked by placing a hungry rat in his Skinner box. The box contained a lever on the side, and as the rat moved about the box, it would accidentally knock the lever. Immediately, a food pellet would drop into a container next to the lever. The rats quickly learned to go straight to the lever after a few times of being put in the box. The consequence of receiving food if they pressed the lever ensured that they would repeat the action again and again. Negative reinforcement strengthens behavior because it stops or removes an unpleasant experience. Skinner showed how negative reinforcement works by placing rats in a Skinner box and then subjecting them to an unpleasant electric current, which caused some sort of discomfort. As the rat moved around the box, it would accidentally knock the lever. Immediately, the electric current would be switched off. The rats quickly learned to go straight to the lever after a few times of being put in the box. The consequence of escaping the electrical current ensured that they would repeat the action again and again. In fact, Skinner even taught the rats to avoid the electric current by turning on a light just before the electric current came on. The rats soon learned to press the lever when the light came on because they knew this would stop the electric current being switched on. Punishment is designed to weaken or eliminate a response rather than increase it. Punishment usually induces fear of repercussions. Positive punishment presents an unfavorable event or outcome in order to weaken the response it follows. Negative punishment occurs when a favorable event or outcome is removed after a behavior occurs. Taking away one's authority or advancement opportunities would be a form of negative punishment. The theory of motivation, developed by Abraham Maslow in 1943, holds that humans have 5 levels of needs and act to satisfy their unmet needs. At the base of the hierarchy are fundamental psychological needs, followed in order by safety, social, esteem, and self-actualization needs. Only when the lower order needs of physical and emotional well-being are satisfied are we connected with the higher order needs of influence and personal development. Our biological and philosophical needs are air, food, drink, shelter, warmth, sex, and sleep. Safety needs include protection from the elements, security, order, law, limits, or stability. Belongingness and love needs refer to a work group, family, affection, and overall relationships. Esteem needs refer to self-esteem, achievement, mastery, independence, status, dominance, prestige. Could even be managerial responsibility. Self-actualization needs are realizing one's personal potential, self-fulfillment, seeking personal growth and peak performance. Leaders use Maslow's hierarchy to identify the needs of their staff and to help them feel fulfilled. Whether it's by giving them a pet project, a fancy job title, or even a flexible working arrangement so they can pursue their interests outside the workplace. David McClelland's acquired needs theory is also known as 3 needs theory. This was proposed by psychologist David McClelland and is a motivational model that attempts to explain how the needs for achievement, affiliation, and power affect the actions of people from a managerial context. This model was developed in the 1960s, 2 decades after Maslow's hierarchy of needs were first proposed in the early 1940s. McClelland stated that we all have these 3 types of motivation, regardless of our age, sex, race, or culture. The type of motivation by which each individual is driven derives from their life experiences and the opinions of their culture. This need theory is often taught in classes concerning management or organizational behavior. The first is achievement. If an individual's predominant motive is achievement, they are motivated to do better for the sake of doing so. They hope to exceed expectations and are pleased when they surpass their peers. These individuals like challenges and want to be in charge of their success. Achievement-oriented individuals will change the situation or the location if they feel like it's not meeting their needs. They do not like working in groups because they do not like having limited control over the outcome. Instead, they prefer to do work where the results are clear and visible. Affiliation. If an individual's predominant motive is affiliation, they are essentially motivated by social connections. They are primarily motivated to fit in and please others, and value their relationships with their peers. These individuals appreciate familiar situations and are unlikely to leave their work location. They also do not like working alone and try to avoid disappointing their coworkers and managers at all costs. Even though affiliation-motivated individuals work well in a team, they are often not the best employees. They are not motivated to do better as they are content to stay in their position. there is no drive to improve their employee status or their personal position, which makes them, in effect, the least effective workers. Power. If an individual's predominant motive is power, they are motivated to influence others and take control. This motive typically takes on a more mild form of coach or leader. They do not seek to implement a dictatorship, but hope to motivate others, delegate responsibility, and influence those around them. Not all power-motivated individuals will make good leaders, as each personality is unique, and those who are aggressive and authoritative may actually decrease the work performance of their employees. Victor Vroom's expectancy theory separates effort, performance, and outcome. While Maslow and Herzberg focus on the relationship between the internal needs and the resulting effort expanded to fulfill them, Vroom realized that an employee's performance is based on individual factors such as personality, skills, knowledge, experience, and abilities. The three areas measured are expectancy, instrumentality, and balance. Expectancy is the idea that increasing the amount of effort will increase performance. Basically, if I work harder, then I'll perform better. This can be affected by having the right resources available, for example, raw materials or time, having the right skills to do the job, having the necessary support to get the job done. An organization should uncover which factors motivate their employees to deliver their best possible performance. It's all about the connection between their performance and the right sources of motivation. Instrumentality is the idea that if you perform better, then the outcome will be achieved. If I perform well, then I'm going to get to the desired outcome. This can be affected by a clear understanding of the relationship between performance and outcomes, essentially the rules of the reward game. Valence is the perceived value the employee puts on the outcome. For the valence to be positive, the person must prefer the outcome rather than not attaining it. If someone is mainly motivated by money, they may or may not value additional time off, as an example. It's a good idea for an organization to find out what the individual employees value and what their personal needs are, such as sources of motivation. One might value money, while another values more days off. Vroom's expectancy theory works on perceptions. So even if a motivation tactic works with most people in the organization, doesn't necessarily mean that it would work for everybody.